Millions of Palestinians across the world are marking the 78th anniversary of the Nakba. The word is Arabic for catastrophe. It refers to the mass expulsion and flight of some 700,000 Palestinians from what is now Israel during the 1948 war that led to the creation of the modern Israeli state. In Gaza, demonstrators donned traditional clothing and marched carrying photos of keys as a symbol of their right to return home. It's the third Nakba commemoration since the war in Gaza began. The United Nations says more than 3/4 of homes in the enclave have been damaged in more than 2 years of fighting between Israel and Hamas. That has caused the renewed displacement of almost 2 million Palestinians, many of them multiple times. Some Gaza inhabitants who were born decades after the expulsion of their ancestors have called the current situation a new Nakba. DW's Jerusalem correspondent Tania Kraemer filed this report.
We've experienced every aspect of the Nakba, just like we heard from our grandparents. The life in tents, the heat inside, and in the rain when we'd get drenched. It's suffering beyond description.
Throughout the war, we experienced loss, displacement, fear and anxiety. We kept being displaced and it was very difficult for us. We did not live through the Nakba, but what we are experiencing now is even worse. Gaza itself has become a catastrophe, worse than the Nakba of 1948.
The Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe, marks the displacement of Palestinians in 1948. What happened since connects many Palestinians to the collective trauma of 1948. After Hamas terror attacks on October 7, 2023, Israel launched a devastating war on Gaza. More than 70,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to Gaza health officials. Nearly 2.2 million people have been displaced.
Today, however, we are living the Nakba in every aspect: displacement, killing and uprooting. My father was killed, and the greatest catastrophe that happened to us is that my family members were killed, my father and my uncles. There's almost no one left except my mother and my siblings. May God protect them.
In the occupied West Bank, Palestinians face Israeli settler violence, closures, home demolitions and Israeli policies that are aimed at annexation. What does the Nakba mean for young Palestinians today?
Right now, we are afraid that a new Nakba may happen, especially to our people in Gaza. The expansion of settlements in the West Bank also leads to a new Nakba. And the displacement of our brothers in the refugee camps from cities such as Jenin and Tulkarem also contributes to a new Nakba in our present time.
The people who were driven from their land and towns 80 years ago because of the Israeli Nakba, if you went to any one of them now and said, "I will give you the key to your house so you can return today," he would tell you, "No, I don't want to return. We're not safe. We've been devastated for 80 years and every day brings a new catastrophe."
What future do Palestinians see for themselves?
We're all targets of the occupation and the settlers, and we are being subjected to the greatest wave of violence seen in the current period, whether in the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. The situation we are living through is a tragedy, a catastrophe. Our daily life is itself a Nakba.
The situation we've seen with war, shelling, death and suffering leaves no future for Gaza. There's no hope amid all this rubble. No future. I'm 32 years old, trying and struggling to build my future, but this war has destroyed everything.
There is no life, no safety, no peace of mind, no work, not even food, not even water. Nothing is available in Gaza. We are living like bodies, without souls.
Let's get some analysis now with Omar Dajani. He's a law professor at the University of the Pacific in California and has advised the Palestinian negotiating team in peace talks with Israel in the past. Welcome to the program. Omar, for Palestinians, the Nakba continues to echo in the ongoing conflict with Israel. To what degree are unresolved legal issues going back to 1948 still shaping that conflict today?
I think it's both unresolved legal issues and broader roots of conflict that still stir people's emotions. So when I think back on the experience of my own family, my father was 16 in 1948. He and his family lived in Jaffa, which is now inside Israel. And more than a month before Israel declared independence, a month before Arab states intervened in the conflict, Zionist militias attacked the city of Jaffa, and my father and his family, terrified, like so many of the other thousands of Palestinians in the city, fled the city expecting within weeks or months, when things calmed down, that they would return. In that sense, their situation was like so many other refugees around the world. But not only were they not allowed to return to their home when the war ended, but like so many other refugees, their property was confiscated and now sits as a vacant lot in the city of Jaffa. And so I think that my family, like so many others, asks the question, what does justice require at this juncture? To what extent will it include restitution for lost property? And to what extent will it involve return? And those are both legal issues and also moral issues.
Of course. The Nakba, the catastrophe for Palestinians, is inextricably linked with the creation of a sovereign state for Jews who themselves had suffered centuries of persecution. In this sense, independence for one group was gained at the expense of another group being dispossessed. Is there any way of reconciling that?
It's such an important question. And I think that there are ways of reconciling it. I think there has long been an interest in ensuring that what was envisioned in 1947, which was that there would be a state for Palestinians alongside a state for the Jewish people, could be realized. Those efforts have been undermined by a range of factors, but over the last number of years by the Netanyahu government's very explicit refusal to accept the idea of Palestinian self-determination. But there are visions being advocated that I think could achieve transformation. I'm very involved in a joint Palestinian-Israeli movement called A Land for All. And what we advocate for is a different kind of two-state solution, one in which there is not only a Palestinian state alongside Israel, but also one in which there is freedom of movement and ultimately freedom of residence across the entire territory, honoring both people's attachment to this land, while at the same time addressing issues like settlements, Jerusalem, refugees that have eluded settlement in past negotiations. So I think that if there is political will on the part of the international community to press for solutions of this kind, they are possible. Israelis and Palestinians on the ground are pushing for them. But we need the international community, including Germany, to stand up.
The Israelis and Palestinians got very close to an agreement in 1999, as you well know. When negotiations failed, I was anchoring news at the time and asked the Palestinian negotiator, chief Palestinian negotiator, Saeb Erekat, why. He told me the right of return of refugees. You were an advisor to the Palestinians at the time, if I'm not mistaken. If the deal like the one that was on the table then were to be offered again now, some form of that, do you think it could be accepted, or is the right of return of refugees still non-negotiable for Palestinians?
So I think that there were a lot of different factors that contributed to the demise of that negotiation at that juncture. I think you're right that Palestinians felt that the negotiations failed to address Palestinian refugee rights, and including the right of return, but also, as I alluded to earlier, concerns about restitution of properties and other matters. I think Palestinians also felt that those negotiations provided for a map of the West Bank that involved such significant Israeli annexation across the West Bank and in Jerusalem that the Palestinian state would not be viable. So I think that was also a factor. Would Palestinians accept such a deal at this juncture? It's hard to say. I think in view of the cataclysm that has befallen Palestinians, I think that there would probably be a sense that anything is better than the circumstances we face now. But I think if what we're looking for is a long-term resolution of this conflict, it's important for us to address all of its root causes fairly. And one of those root causes is the dispossession of Palestinian refugees. I don't think most Palestinian refugees would actually return to the places inside Israel where they come from. But affirming the right and giving them the opportunity to exercise it is really crucial if we're going to move forward on the basis of peace and equality.
You mentioned the Netanyahu government, which, in your view, has not done much to pursue any sort of agreement with the Palestinians. But on the Palestinian side, too, there's also a problematic Palestinian Authority, who would represent the Palestinians. What hope do you have for the Palestinian Authority reforming to the point that it's accepted by both Palestinians and Israelis in any future negotiations?
First of all, speaking about the extent to which the Palestinian Authority needs reform and is accepted by Palestinians, I think undoubtedly there are really significant governance problems that have assailed the Palestinian Authority. But make no mistake, the single biggest source of illegitimacy on the Palestinian Authority's part, the reason why Palestinians look at it with skepticism, is not so much because of corruption and mismanagement, though both of those things have been a problem, as because it has failed to secure a peaceful future for Palestinians. Palestinians look and say, the path toward negotiations that you promised us would yield freedom and statehood has not delivered those benefits. And so I think that it is honestly very difficult to achieve transformation of the Palestinian Authority so long as an occupation, which the International Court of Justice said is illegal and must come to an end immediately, so long as that occupation is in force, asking the Palestinian Authority to reform, I think, is a fool's errand. Something worth pursuing, but it's not going to deliver transformation. As far as Israel's trust of the Palestinians, I'm sorry, did you say something?
No, it's quite all right. Go ahead. We just have 1 minute left.
Okay, sorry, yes. As far as Israel's trust of the Palestinians are concerned, I think that what we really need is for the international community to treat both parties at parity, to recognize that Palestinians have a right to our representation, just as Israel does, even if we don't always agree, even if we don't always see eye to eye.
Omar, thank you very much for this talk. That was Omar Dajani from the Law Faculty of the University of the Pacific.
Thank you.
More on this, I'm joined now by political analyst Akiva Eldar. He's co-author of the book Lords of the Land, the story of Jewish settlements after 1967. Thanks for being with us. First of all, tell us more about how Palestinians mark this day. Is it purely a day of grievance or also a day of community?
There are too many communities of Palestinians who are marking differently this day. And this is part of the original Nakba. There are Palestinians who live in Israel, and they are Israeli citizens. Some of them don't even define themselves as Palestinians. They say, we are Israeli Arabs or the Israeli citizens of 48 Nakba. There are Palestinians who live in the diaspora. In Germany, there is a community. There are Palestinians who live in East Jerusalem. They are inhabitants, but not citizens. And of course, there are the Palestinians that you just showed in your show, who live in Gaza, if you can call it live, and in the West Bank. And they are people, some of them are double refugees. There are refugees of 48. For them, the Nakba reminds them the first time that they became refugees. And now, since the October 23 massacre, about 44 communities of them were dragged for the second time from their homes by violent Israeli settlers that are getting full support or blind eye from the Israeli authorities. And for these people, the Nakba has never stopped.
As we heard in our report from our correspondent there, many Palestinians today draw a direct connection from the Nakba to the Gaza war and the violence that we're seeing in the West Bank by Israeli settlers. You referred to that. Do you share that sentiment that there's a direct connection between these events?
I'm afraid that things are getting worse. And there is a paradox here. There are more than, in the last poll I saw, there were more than 55% of the Israeli Palestinians or Israeli Arabs who say that they will not vote for an Arab party that will refuse to join the Israeli Jewish coalition, so to speak, the Zionist coalition. The majority of the 1.5 million Arabs who live in Israel, and they are supposedly have, have the same rights as I do have. And they want to integrate. They would like to see an Arab minister in the cabinet. But the Israeli politicians, unlike the Israeli inhabitants, the Israeli constituency, they are afraid to even communicate and to, we are looking at elections maybe in September or the latest in October. And in the polls that you see in the newspapers, mainstream newspapers and television, you can see opposition, coalition, and Arabs. And 4 out of 5 parties from the center left are dismissing any chance that they will invite the Israeli Arab parties to join the coalition, even if they will not be able to form a new government. So there is a paradox. On one hand, more than 50% of the pharmacists are Israeli Arabs.
I want to ask you about politics, since you're getting into that. The prospect of achieving a two-state solution, that's been looking more and more remote over the past few years. Do you think that the goal of a two-state solution is still achievable or even desirable given the current circumstances?
I'm afraid that it's not even on the agenda. I don't see any party, excluding the Democrats, the famous old Labour Party in Israel, that is offering theoretically a two-state solution, but even they are saying not now. What they are really saying is that the Israeli society has to recover from the trauma of the massacre of October 26. Although 90% of the Israeli Arabs very clearly in all the polls rejecting, they are appalled by what Hamas has done. And this is the tragedy here, that the Israelis are alienating the 20% of the population. It's okay, to have an Arab doctor, pharmacist, but not in the government. There is, lip service that the Labour Party says, yes, we want to see a two-state solution. But adding to that, when was the last time that a German leader put pressure on Israel or an American to put an end to the settlements project and to stop the violence? So there is a lip service that you can hear again and again, speakers from Europe and the United States, leaders saying there is no other solution. What are they doing in order to pursue it?
Okay. Akiva, thank you very much for taking time to speak with us today. That was political analyst Akiva Eldar.
Thank you.